This video is brought to you by brighttutoring.ca. Don't let school get in the way of your education. Book a tutoring session today at brighttutoring.ca. The Fellowship of Guelphissauga continues, with the housing cost crisis dwindling down the Shire's reserve funds. The housing crisis boiled over this week, with Urbanation taking its temperature and the corporation of the Shire giving away a cool $500,000. Meanwhile, the university faced a big lawsuit that could ruin their plans for a financial surplus in 2027. Whereas on the ground level of the housing crisis, the banana guy took a tumble, causing hunger levels to rise across the Shire. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves fix the housing cost crisis? And will the university go broke in 2027? The housing cost crisis boiled over this month, with Urbanation taking its temperature. Using data from rentals.ca, they reported the Shire as the 12th most expensive city for monthly rental prices. According to July's rental data, the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in the Shire was $2,000, and a two-bedroom apartment cost $2,400. Canada's rental market is currently facing a perfect storm of factors driving rents to new highs, said Sean of Hildebrand, president of Urbanation. These include the peak season for lease activity, an open border policy for new residents, quickly rising incomes, and the worst ever home ownership affordability conditions. But this was no surprise to those paying attention to the incoming storm and the student housing games looming this fall. The housing cost crisis has pushed the minimum wage earners into Riverside Park, even with the opening of Grace Gardens down the road. The mayor finally had enough of people trolling him on Twitter, so he decided to do something and proposed activating the $500,000 sitting idle in the Shire's Affordable Housing Reservation Fund. With the help of his orcish friend, Rodrigo of Gawler, the mayor requested that the corporation of the Shire's Sunshine Listers partner with the Home for Good campaign using the cool $500,000 in reserve. Led by the United Way Guelph and the Guelph Community Foundation, the Home for Good campaign was launched last year in support of the Kindle project as well as Stepping Stone's Grace Gardens. The request for an additional $500,000 would help build Kindle Community's 32-unit project at 10 Shelldale Crescent, already under construction. It would also reduce the balance on the Shire's affordable housing reserves to a mere $75,000. But the Council of Elders only had 3 weeks to decide if this was a good use of our tax dollars. In what was supposed to be their last-minute council meeting for the summer, they received the late request last month. Councillors Richardson and Bezutel initially raised concerns over the rapid request for a large pile of money, and the Elder Elves pointed out that this was the second year in a row they received this kind of request with such short notice. Councillor O'Rourke, who just happens to be a board member for the United Way and the Community Foundation, asked for the request to be moved to an emergency meeting in August before the deadline on the 15th. Normally, the Council of Elders doesn't meet in August, but they met anyways to approve this last-minute request. In a meeting that lasted only 20 minutes, they unanimously voted to approve the request to give $500,000 to the affordable housing project. The mayor took to Twitter to announce the victory for the Kindle project and the United Way. Solving homelessness is not fully on governments, he said, as he blocked people on Twitter from commenting on the post. Councillor Phil of the Alts and Michelle of Richardson joined the mayor on Twitter with their own video. We need the support of the province, and that means millions of dollars put into housing, said Phil of the Alts as he sat at a picnic table and twiddled his thumbs. Michelle of Richardson finished the video by suggesting we donate more to the United Way and Homes for Good as she shook her head side to side and winked at the camera. Meanwhile, at the university's ivory tower, the fat cats prepared for the incoming student housing games. Similar to the corporation of the Shire, their financial reserves are dwindling as they face multi-year million-dollar deficits until the year 2027. But their strategic plan for an $8 million surplus in the future might go up in smoke as they're faced with a $4 million lawsuit. Back in 2021, a first-year student was injured during a shopping cart incident on campus. As reported in the lawsuit, around 11 p.m. on the day of the incident, the student was sitting on a ledge at the university's main campus when a supposedly drunk man riding down a ramp in a shopping cart ran into her legs. She fell backwards off the ledge and hit her head on the concrete 5 feet below. From the tumble, she suffered serious and permanent injuries, including a traumatic brain injury, post-concussion syndrome, headaches, and cognitive deficits. The university's initial reaction to the incident was to place the man on non-academic probation for breaching their student policy. In the current lawsuit, they deny any responsibility and claim the student riding the shopping cart should be held liable. Hopefully that's the case, as a $4 million hit to their budget would ruin their plans for a financial surplus in 2027. The university is also taking extra safety precautions this fall, motivated by the stabbing in a gender studies class in Waterloo earlier this summer. As we prepare for fall semester, we are in the process of removing identifying information such as room locations and instructor names from public-facing pages and keeping them behind the university's secure login, said Director of Communications Deidre Healy. As with their budget plans, the university's fat cats use this opportunity to expand their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They encourage their staff to use the university's training and resources for fostering safe and inclusive spaces, which includes sexual and gender-based violence training, as well as anti-oppression and anti-racism training. But the essential research and learning will continue on at the Shire's university either way. In the Department of Food Science, Dr. Alejandro of Maragoni discovered a more sustainable way to make plant-based meats while keeping the delicious meaty texture. Using a waste product from corn called zine, which is traditionally used for animal feed or as a natural herbicide, he found a technique to utilize it in plant-based meat. We learned how to mess around with this protein and plasticize it, which made it gooey like bread dough, he said. Whereas in neuroscience studies, the Shire students can look forward to a new course called Mime over Mind. This experiential learning class, with only 20 spots, teaches students how to become fluent in mime as a technique for treating movement disorders like Parkinson's disease. Anyone at the university is welcome to take it, though it's targeted specifically for students interested in fields like art therapy. Back at the ground level of the housing cost crisis, the banana guy at Sir Edward's bench also took a tumble. For the entire summer, the banana guy was fighting the nutritious food battle against the Shire Smart Cities office. Armed only with a bag of bananas, he fought tirelessly against the WEF's agenda to implement a circular food economy matrix by handing out bananas for free. But even the banana guy needed a break after falling ill, and the Shire started to suffer. With the banana guy taking a well-deserved break, the hunger levels quickly rose in the Shire. His supporters started dressing up in banana costumes in solidarity, but it was little help. According to a recent survey of 1,500 people across the nation, the people of the Shire were the most likely to ignore dog waste, ranked third for most likely to apologize, and second for people swearing the most. This was no surprise given the recent repeated assault on dog walkers. For the second week in a row, a anger-fueled rage took over someone walking down the street, and they took it out on another dog walker. This time it happened to a woman walking her dog near Water Street and Maple Street instead of on Aramosa Road. Some lady was just walking her dog when another hangry female walking in the opposite direction turned and began following her. She eventually got in front of her and started yelling at her about her dog not being on a leash. The hangry female pushed the dog walker in the chest, causing her to fall backwards into a hedge. Luckily, she wasn't injured, since she could afford to eat bananas. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves fix the housing cost crisis? And will the university go broke in 2027? Stay tuned here to see.